tuning is such a huge thing, well, obviously for drummers, but it can be, I call it an esoteric art, you know. It's really, as we've already seen in, you know, the comments, everybody has their own way, everybody has their own theory. You'll see that in YouTube videos. You know, there's been DVDs made throughout the ages, at least of DVDs, of like, that's always part of somebody's set, is how do they tune their drums, how do you do it? People have done whole series on it. So, you know, for me personally, and it's something that like, I care a lot about, and I'm really, really excited right now, because for so much of my career and my drumming life, it was like the bane of my drumming existence. Like, I would just like tear my hair out, and I'd have to like, I'd lose perspective, and then I'd have to come back again, and it would take, you know, hours or days of like, you know, and it was just this super hit and miss endeavor. And so, you know, I know there's TuneBot, there's drum dials, you know, again, everybody's got their own way of doing it, but I discovered this way, so this is like 2.5 years ago now, completely inadvertently. So I was online, and I think it was Creative Live. I actually paid to take a class from Matt Halpern of Periphery, and the then bass player of Periphery and producer, Nolly Get Good. And so it was a whole video series on drum recording. And so like the third video in, it was an entire like 45-minute thing just on drum tuning. And it was really the first time, let me move in a little bit so my head isn't so, it was really the first time I had seen somebody talk about it in such a systematic, I think I'm probably talking too loud too, because I have a lavalier mic on. I'm gonna bring it on down here, Jay. It was the first time I had seen somebody talk about it in such a systematic way, and had, you know, really like a system for it. And so that really appealed to me. The other thing about Nolly was that he's very much like me, where it's like kind of like did it as this kind of scientific, again, systematic way. He literally tuned, he's saying hundreds of drums. With, you know, different drums, different head combinations, different tunings, finding the one that he felt like sounded the best. And I don't know if you've ever listened to any Periphery stuff. That's not super my genre of music, but like it is meticulously recorded and produced. You can just tell, you know, he's the one that's responsible for a lot of their sounds, and he and Matt Halpern working together. So I just felt like, given his approach and the sounds that he's getting, given that he really cared a lot about it, and he had gone through and developed this whole system for himself, I was just kind of like, whoa, okay, I gotta check this out. And I'm not even sure like how much farther past that third video that I even got in the series, because it like blew my mind. What happened in that video was basically this system. So, and again, I know, you know, several of you have said, you put on the head, you finger tune it, and you kind of do it until it sounds good. And that's absolutely fine if that's what works for you. I mean, the most important thing is that all of us get the sound that we want. But for me, I never liked it. It was just so hit and miss. And I wanted a system. I wanted something that would be replicable every single time. And I have now found that. And I have tuned, and I'm not exaggerating or kidding here, I have tuned like $65 kits that came from a garage sale. That's like the lowest of the low, like the heads had never been changed from when the kit was bought. And I have tuned, then the whole like tuning, you know, and then dampening, I've actually gotten those to like sound okay. Like there was a big thread earlier today in this group about, you know, not going overboard with like super high-end drums and all of that kind of stuff, that like you can make, you know, a mid-level to even, you know, low entry-level kits sound really great by heads tuning and the kind of sticks that you, and of course your technique and the way you play it. So I have tuned those kits and made them sound decent for what they were, all the way up to like Yamaha stage custom at music festivals. Like I had a music festival that asked me to tune their backline kit because they thought what I was doing sounded so awesome. And it was because I'm using this system, to give credit where credit is due, this system from Nolly Get Good that I got from this video. So those of you that are looking to jump right to, okay, JJ, what is this system? then you can go ahead and jump, to fast forward this if you're watching this later. But I know there are some of us on this group, and that's kind of my whole thing with this group, is that I'm all about sharing knowledge and empowering women. And so I'm going to somewhat start from people there. I know there are beginners in this group that even if they've been playing a couple years, maybe they've never touched their drums, maybe they're freaked out about changing heads, and especially about tuning. It just seems like it's this, like, what, like I said, this sort of esoteric thing. So I'm going to kind of start from the beginning, as far as like changing the head itself and putting on blah blah blah. But again, if you're more experienced, feel free to fast forward if you're watching this later and go right to what the actual method is. So this is my smallest tom, which I actually right now I'm not using in my setup. And so I kept the bottom head on because I'm just using the heads that were already in. These are not brand new heads. But that's the other thing that's important to say. When you tune it really well, you can get old heads. Like I said, on that ancient kit, you can get old heads to sound really good. So I can see some questions are coming in. I'm going to wait until the end just because I would need binoculars to see like what they are. But I love that some people are tuning in already, asking questions. Please, you guys know I just live for this stuff. And so please, and later ask questions too in the comments, and I will totally jump on and answer, because I just love talking about this. And I'm so excited about it because, again, it's so replicable, from kit to kit to kit. So here's my drum. I've taken off the top head. It's also called the batter head. All right. And here's the head. Again, this is not brand new. And so the big thing to do, again, if you've never really done this before, haven't done it that many times, it's really, really important to clean the drum once you take the head off. So not only inside, there's probably going to be hairs and dust and stuff like that. The most important thing is to clean. This is called the bearing rim or the bearing edge, and that's what the head sits on. So again, I will put this materials either in the comments, I'll copy it or whatever, but like I've got a cool graphic that kind of shows. It's like as if you were to do a cross section of the drum. So it's like if it was cut open and it's a diagram, and it shows you. But basically, if this is the bearing rim or bearing edge, the head sits on it like this, and that's what it vibrates on, basically. And so it's really important that that's not only clean, but also that it doesn't have like nicks and mars and things like that. Like I was telling somebody else in this group, my very first drum set was a 1979 Gretsch, like vintage, amazing. Well, I used to not have bottom heads because I thought that's how Keith Moon plays. Keith Moon's my drumming hero, and so which is awesome. That it's called the concert style toms. But the problem is that I didn't understand anything about drums. I didn't understand that this kit I had was so amazing and so like revered or whatever. So I used to just set the drums down right on their bearing edge, like on the concrete while I was loading my car. Like now I'm just like, oh my God, like can't even believe it, but yes, I used to do that. So I ended up having to have those bearing edges reground, basically. And I found somebody who did it to Gretsch's specifications. Gretsch in particular had their thing. Every company kind of has their own bearing edge, and Gretsch's are 30 degrees. So anyway, so that's what this is called, as a bearing edge. So the head sits on that, so make sure it's clean. All right, so put the head on, place it on really lightly. This, is fitting pretty well. That's a whole other thing to talk about, is if your drum isn't perfectly round, that's called true. If your drum isn't true, it will not go in tune. And so that's another thing that I used to tear my hair out about tuning, because I'd be like, okay, it's not working. So is it the drum? Is it a faulty head? Or is it me? Or is it all three? And like, yeah, how do I systematically, try and eliminate the issue that's going on? So, so a way to check, and I'm not going to do that here, but is to take your drum very gently on the bearing end and place it on a flat table. And if it'll rock back and forth or whatever, that's a sure sign that it's not true. I mean, some of them are so warped you can actually visually see it, but I think usually you have to set it on something. So just as an FYI, I mean, it doesn't mean you can't use the drum or something like that. You need to throw it away. It just means that, like, okay, if it's not getting in tune, it's not really going to get in very good tune, as far as like evenly pitch, like all the tension, because it's not perfectly round. So, okay, so my, head is fitting on there really nicely. And so now the next thing to do is take, this is called the hoop. And, you know, Gretsch is kind of known for their, they're called die-cast hoops, but triple flanged or flanged hoops are the other style. That's usually the two different kinds. But the die-cast is actually, it's not stamped out, it's actually cast. And that's the big difference, and it's really heavy duty. Some people don't like that sound because they feel like it kind of kills some of the resonance of the drum. Other people love it because it's so stable, and I'm particularly in that camp because, again, I have played Gretsch my whole life, and that's the kind of hoops that they have. So this is called a hoop. So you very carefully place that on and line it up. These are called lugs. You know, these are the lugs, and I can't remember. These probably have their own name of where the lug goes into, but they're kind of the equivalent of bolts. So, so again, making sure the head is, it's called seated. You know, you seat the head on the bearing edge, make sure it's freely moving and it's not getting stuck anywhere. Place the hoop on top of that. Something else to mention as far as seating, I guess that would be, you know, like you could tell if something is on the bearing rim, if you can kind of hear it grinding or whatever, but it should seat very well. Oh, that's what I was going to say. In the old days, and Remo might still be like this, I don't play Remo heads, but like you used to have to do what's called cracking. So once you get the head on and you get some tension going, you need to push down in the middle and you would actually hear a crack, and then that would seat the head on top of the, you know, on top of the shell, basically. This thing is called a shell. So that I have read that that's not really necessary anymore with the new technology of heads. I also use pretty much only Aquarian, and now I use Evans because I love these UV1 coated heads. So just as an FYI, but I think that there is an upside to doing that pressing down once you've got a little tension, just because, just like with guitar strings, the head is going to stretch, especially if it's new. It's going to need to be broken in, and you'll have to keep retuning it at first because it's going to stretch out and form to the shell and seat on that bearing rim. So, okay, so got this on. Again, this is not a brand new head, so it shouldn't stretch all that much. So I'm going to take my lugs, and you know, at this point, this is where, like, if this was an actual DVD, there would be like music playing, and it'd be like dee dee dee, you know, and then it would like cut to where I had put all these lugs in. But because this is a Facebook Live, you guys get to watch me as I'm doing this. And this is when you hear people saying they finger tighten or whatever. That's what I'm doing here. And right now I'm just lining all of these up. And the other thing I wanted to say too about this process is this kind of a drum key, if you can see, is really cool for doing, well, it's super heavy duty. It's not one I like to carry around, but I use it for changing heads because it's heavy, it's magnetic, so the lugs stick to it, but mostly it has this little knob on the top. So instead of having to go like that to whirl it around, you can actually just twist the knob. So I find that to be like really super fast when you're just trying to get that extra space when you first put the lugs in there to get them to go all the way down. So basically, while I'm doing this, I'll start introducing. So, you know, Nolly's method, it's not like some magical thing. It's more that he's tuning to specific pitches. And so the bass drum, I'm sure you guys have read that in any tuning research that you've done or whatever. And again, there's all sorts of different schools of thought of what you should do. Some people tune it, some people don't tune it to a pitch at all. It looked like some of the comments, people are just like, I just finger tighten it, I do it till it sounds good, and that's it. Other people do it so that the top head, the batter and the resonant head are equal. Very common way is to have the batter head a little bit higher in pitch. So the thing about Nolly's thing is that it's to a very specific pitch, each head in ratio or relation to each other, and then each drum, basically that ratio and that combination of pitches of the top head and the bottom head make a fundamental pitch. And what that's going to be is for, say, a 10, 12, and 14-inch drum, that's what I have with my toms, that's going to be D-A-E. Basically, so the fundamental pitch of this will be a D, but then there are two other pitches, and again, and I have to look, basically, so that's, you know, just as far as what you need to tune. Obviously a drum key, I use like maybe a dampener you might want later, but I've got my iPad here that has my list of pitches, and it also has a program called Pitch Perfect. So that's the gist of this, is that I am matching the pitch at each lug to a very specific pitch that I got from Nolly Get Good, which you could also do the same thing with a drum dial or a tune bot or whatever. I haven't tried those, I just do mine by ear. But I use an app called Pitch Perfect, and so it's like a pitch pipe, but it's digital. But the reason I like that one is that it has a 7-octave range. So sometimes that's the one thing that can get kind of tricky with this, is that I might accidentally go like an octave too high or an octave too low. And so I like being able to know exactly like what the hertz are, basically. So what I have written down as Nolly's method for the top head, for the batter head, so this is a 10-inch drum, batter head, so the fundamental pitch of the drum is going to be a D. It's tuned like a guitar, D-A-E. So that means that my batter head needs to be an A sharp, and my resonant head needs to be a C sharp, and that C sharp is 554 hertz. It's that particular C. So, okay, so this is the finger tightening, going around just like I'm getting each one of these just so that it's the top of the lug is barely hitting the hoop. That means that right now the tension's all the same, because that's really the absolute key with tuning and getting a drum to sing, you know, is having the tension at each lug be the same. That's kind of the point. And whether or not you do that to a specific pitch, it's up to you and what you like, but it's the even, equal tension. That's the real key with getting the drum in tune. So you can hear there's really not a pitch at all. This is just totally dead right now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go, so I know that I need my batter head to be an A sharp. So I am going to go to Pitch Perfect, and I'm going to find, and just the way that the ratio goes, it is going to end up being that the resonant head is a little bit higher than the, so I know my resonant head is a C, that's whatever that was, 5 something. C sharp is 554. So I want to go a little bit lower to, what did I say it was? Was it a G sharp? No, resonant is C sharp, batter is A sharp. Okay. And then the C sharp is, want to get my make sure that I'm like, okay, I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. Okay, so before I do that, I'm also going to now quickly, before I try to get any pitch, I'm just going to go around and give each one of these a half turn. And basically, and again, the point is to get it to be equal. So I'm trying as much as I can, knowing that like there's no way to get it absolutely perfect. Went around, so I'm already, so that's about equal, which again is fine because I'm going to fine tune it in a minute. So I just wanted to get it generally in the right place. But that's the thing again about a high tom, is it's going to really super fast get in tune. It doesn't take much tension at all for it to like go too high. So you got to, you know, just watch out for that. Don't just start cranking on it. That's why I start with only a half a turn. So the other thing too is you probably saw me doing this across, and that's, you'll have seen that in some of the comments, the whole star thing. You're always going across from the lug that you were at, because that's again to get the even tension. That said, I was on tour a few years ago going through Nashville. I was using a borrowed kit from the band that I was playing with, and I just could not get the snare to sound good. And this is also before I did a lot of stuff with tuning. So in Nashville, I went to what is, I think is the best drum shop in the country, which is Forks in Nashville. And I went in and said, can somebody, you know, can you guys, I'm going to buy new heads. Can somebody help me get this sounding better? So I ended up going in the back with who ended up being the drum tech for the Grand Ole Opry. I'm not kidding you guys. I was like, this is awesome. So we go in the back and he starts, you know, like getting it sounding great. Well, he puts on the head and just immediately starts going around. He's not doing any and I was like, well, aren't you supposed to do the star thing? He's just like, whatever. I mean, so this is just a good point to say that, like, you, just as we've been talking about in this group, you can get super into this rabbit hole of like, everything has to be exactly as these rules or what, you know, and it's like, he was just like, whatever. He's like, I look at it as like a screwing in a screw, you know, you're sort of like screwing the head on. So I was like, that's awesome. So again, whatever works. You know, I think I personally start out when it's a brand new head, I do the star thing first. But then when I'm really fine-tuning it and trying to hit this pitch, I'm literally doing these little micro movements with the key, I just start going around, and I don't think it makes any difference. So, okay, so let's start seeing where we are with our pitch. Let me turn this down a little bit. I don't know if you guys can hear. It's kind of amazing, like how you can actually hear that each lug has a pitch to it. And the other thing that really can help is if you put your finger in the middle, because you can, especially if it's an older head, or you start getting all these competing overtones. If it's not a real great drum is another thing too. So it helps a lot to either put your finger in the middle or just put like a dampener right in the middle, because that helps. So you're not hearing so much of the entire head with the lugs. You're hearing more of just at the lug itself. So again, for those of you that haven't done this a lot, I'm hitting, you know, maybe an inch, and it also depends on the drum. If I'm doing a big 16-inch floor tom, I'm going to hit probably more like 2 inches from the lug, but on this little tiny 10-inch, I'm just about 1 inch, but I'm just going, that sounds lower to me. So let's do it again. No, that's too high. Awesome. Pretty great. So the other cool thing that I learned from that video, that Nolly video, is to, because when you hit the drum, and I need to say too, I'm using this lavalier mic. If I have any volume at all, it totally distorts it. So I'm not gonna, I hate to say, I'm not gonna give you, which kind of defeats the purpose a little bit, I'm not gonna give you a demo of what this sounds like actually, because it'll just distort it and be awful. But the other thing that they talked about was when you do hit the middle of the drum, you're getting that attack from the drumstick itself. So a way to avoid that and really just hear the head is to go. So you're just flipping your thumb, you're kind of sticking it on there. So let's see how that matches. That sounds maybe. Great. So, I mean, I just can't tell you again, after these so many years of being like, is this one higher? Is it lower? Okay, now I changed that one. Now that made everything else higher. Now, and just to be able to systematically go, turn on the pitch, it's right there. It's at that pitch. Okay, so now the bottom head, I actually, because again, These are not new heads, and I just took this drum out of its case. So this is already up wherever it was from sitting in the case for a while. So I'm just going to check it though and make sure that it is in tune. And so now I'm going to go back to my list. So again, this is a 10-inch drum. And so that means the batter head is A sharp, and that's what we just did. So C sharp is what the resonant head should be. So let's go back to pitch perfect, and it should be a little higher. Too much. I mean, again, it's absolutely worth saying that, like, this is, you know, these are really nice shells. This is a Gretsch Renown walnut. It's 6-ply, 2 plies of maple, or sorry, 2 plies of walnut sandwiching 2 plies of maple. So it's about an $1,800. So it's starting to get up there. It's not like, you know, your $4,000 and $5,000 like DW, whatever, top of the line, or even Gretsch, like a USA Custom. But still, this is a really, I love this kit. It's perfect for me. The walnut and the low frequencies and all that. But just worth saying that, like, certainly the crappier the drums, the cheaper the drums, it might not be this fast that you can instantly find that pitch. You might be getting a lot of like competing overtones or different things like that, and that makes it harder. And like I said, that has happened to me many times, especially on the floor tom, where I've tuned it like an octave too high. And that's where it really is your ear that you sometimes still might need to like leave it and get perspective. I call it a palate cleanser, like in a wine tasting or whatever. Like, you need to go eat a cracker for your ear, you know, basically like something that's going to bring you back to neutral so that you can go back and go, oh, because it's just so easy when you're not hearing things in relation to something else. It's so easy for that to become the new normal. So I'll have to let go or whatever and sort of reset and go, oh, whoa, okay, that is way too high. Like, it should have been lower. And it's worth saying too, because again, I will absolutely post, and full credit to Nolly Get Good, that, you know, complete game changer on the tuning, that he had this method, and I'm now passing on what these pitches are. And so I'll pass on this little chart that tells you, given the, you know, this size of drum should be this fundamental pitch. For that to happen, you need the top head to be this pitch and the bottom head to be that pitch. I will put this little chart in the comments. But yeah, I think I might have just lost my train of thought, but like that, I think this is it. You know, basically this is my super fast way of tuning, and I've done it on many, many kits. So I wish so much that I could like give you guys an example, but you can just kind of hear how that's singing. And in theory, that should be a D. And I think that were we to, if I was to hit it with a stick, I think you would hear that more, and especially if you were to hear it in relation to the other two toms, because you get this da, 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 you get, you know, it going, it's in fourths like a guitar, you know, and it just is so, so awesome. I play with these UV ones, but I put, which are a thin 1-ply head, which is weird for me because I like a really thuddy, almost no sustain, like 70s. I love that thuddy 70s sound. So usually I would use 2-ply heads. I might even use hydraulics or whatever. One of my favorite heads right now is the Reflector series by Aquarian, which is a double 2-ply. I think it's a 7mm and a 10mm plied together. So this is, I think, a single ply 10mm, which is very weird for me to use, but I use it. And then on the larger drums, I put the big fat snare drum dampeners. So that's this thing. If you've seen these around, this is the donut version of a big fat snare drum. There's also ones that are totally solid. I actually never use this for my high tom because I find that it just makes it completely dead. But the floor tom cannot suggest highly enough that you use the big fat snare drum donut on your floor tom. It is the floor tom sound of my dreams, and I'm not kidding. It's just this like growling attack, like it just sounds like your kick drum but like another pitch up, basically. So doing, you know, cool linear things between the floor tom and the kick is just insane. So but on this, you know, I would definitely put at least one you know, like a moon gel, some kind of a gel I would definitely have on this, and probably on the bottom as well, because these are actually, I just got this kit a couple years ago, so this is actually still the stock, because I don't play this drum very much. This is still the stock Gretsch head that came with, because again, this hasn't really been on my kit much at all. I've changed out my other two. So just as an FYI, those are kind of my dream heads right now, are these Evans UV1, because they last forever. Like, I am not kidding you guys. Now again, I haven't played on this one a whole lot, but if you saw my kit, there's virtually no marks on this at all, and it's been over 2 years, and it sounds this good. So it's like, they're super expensive, but they last literally for years. So that's the Evans UV1. It's like this whole new technology where the coating is sprayed on and then it's cured with a UV light. So it just, this longevity and resilience is amazing. So that's why I use these, and then I put instead of a 2-ply head, and then I put some sort of dampening on this. I would use a couple gels. I would personally like to put like a Reso 7 on the bottom, which is like a coated resonant head that's specifically so you don't get a lot of sustain and gets more of a thuddy sound. But as it is, I would probably put like 2 gels on the bottom and 1 gel on the top, because again, I just really like that kind of thuddy sound. So all right, you guys, I'm not sure if I have any questions, because again, I didn't plan to do this live, and so I'm not sure how many of you have even been able to tune in. So yeah, but please do ask questions in the comments, and I will absolutely answer. There's probably something that I forgot, but hopefully this was a good kind of like quick, down and dirty method that you can use to tune your drums that, like I said, works for me every time. It's been amazing. So all right, you guys, talk to you soon. See you soon. Bye.